Tarot readings align with the seasons to explore personal and collective healing as a strategy to let the world we once knew decompose and cultivate a new world that deserves us. Welcome. Rest and a stretch and a seat. Just settle in, however that looks for you. Hi, welcome. Give you a little shoulder. Welcome to Tarot for World on Fire, Spring Equinox Edition. My name is Blair, and it's so great to be with folks. A little bit late, a little bit after Spring Week Equinox, and that's okay. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna do some reflection and journey work together over the next bit of time that we have. So before we get into some of that, just some quick initial framing for the space, as we usually do. So this is an offering that is through the Rooted Collective, a deep and dear collective that I'm a part of. That's really powerful. And yeah, just get into them, get into us. The Rooted Collective, we're a liberatory gathering of Black LGBTQ people to define, dream, and expand on the ways we heal from oppression and practice joy and pleasure. We root our work in the knowledge that healing for all Black people is political resistance. And again, my name is Blair, and I do many things in this world. And one of the ways that I show up is through work on a website that I have built, and there will be many more things to come on that website, currently called A Light Alchemy. And it's a space where you can sit for a spell, breathe through transition, and ignite your power and purpose through the art of tarot, stillness, coaching, consulting, and other integrative healing practices. So feel free to check me out there if you'd like a tarot reading or other sorts of healing supports, or are interested in kind of helping your space, your people, your collective, your organization, your movement sort of move through change and healing. Happy to continue to practice supporting folks in that way as needed, and building out some more of exactly what that looks like on the website soon. As folks know, I've transitioned out of having some cute kind of indie artist sort of stuff happening in the intro and moved into this more curated intro, which is pretty exciting. And again, that intro is from DJ Theodore Rex, who's based in Baltimore. Dope ass DJ. So folks should hit him up. He's great. And maybe can design stuff for other folks too if they're interested. Okay. Welcome. I told myself that this was, told myself and received pretty clear direction from Spirit. This was going to be a shorter, punchier reading. And now that I'm actually in the space and in the coziness of it, and in this flow that I'm usually in, I'm like, oh no, maybe it won't be as punchy as I thought. Maybe we'll kind of just flow as we usually do. But we'll be open and we'll kind of see what happens and what flows and what comes as we move through the messages to come for spring. And wanted to start just by doing some naming of some truth. One is that it's a week out. I think currently the date, I have a calendar over here. It is March 28th, which is a Tuesday. Technically, it's Wednesday morning because I am recording this super late. And it's a week past spring equinox. And I am both, many things are coming up around just like thinking about the timing of this reading. One is that I really have been leaning into the practice of trying to move with more ease and more pacing and um, moving and flowing with what wants to come when it comes. And if there's no space or no, if the thing isn't emerging, having that be okay and really flowing with what is. And give myself grace, honestly. Give myself grace for that. So I know that folks come to expect this probably right on the equinox. And I want to just acknowledge that it's not and apologize for that, but then also ask for grace around it too. And I hope that this message still resonates, even though we are now officially in spring. The second piece I think I want to name just around the timing piece of this too is yeah, there's just a lot that has been happening over this past month in 1,000 different ways for us collectively in the world as people, for queer and trans people very specifically, as it relates to laws and policies that are happening all throughout the country, but very explicitly the South, that are actively harming, oppressing, creating barriers to our livelihoods and our rights and our peace and our dreams and the possibilities to flourish in this world. And for Black, queer, and trans people, that's really expounded and compounded. And so I've been sitting with the truth of those things over this past few weeks, and grieving and not grieving and processing and pushing it down and all that stuff, while also moving through my own personal grief. I was sitting at my altar today, and I have a new ancestor who passed a few weeks ago that I need to add to the altar, and I haven't done that yet. And experiencing some stuff around that. And also experiencing a ton of joy, like really powerful, beautiful newness and excitement and possibility. It's just been a swirly whirlwind of things. And I'm curious if it's been swirly whirlwindy for you too. So we'll talk about that and see if that comes up. So just the collection and combination of those things has meant that this has just been a bit delayed. And so I offer that as truth, and you take what you need and leave what doesn't resonate. And I appreciate you. And so with the reading for today, on spring equinox, I sat outside in the sun, and so many words came to me as I was just like sitting and reflecting, like what are the things that are coming for this season. So much was coming, and I documented and wrote things down. And I think some of those things still resonate. And then today, I was coming home from some travel, and wanted to set an altar to sort of like cleanse and ground and like refresh. My altar is set up in my space here. It's always right over to my right. And it is a space where I have some of my dead. I have plants, I have candles, water, offerings, cards, lots of different tools. And as I was setting an altar today, I was expecting to set an altar just for a second, or just for a little bit, kind of do a little bit of like grounding, kind of getting really present, like letting the day sort of wash away, and then getting ready for this reading. And I just had super intense experiences just happened while I was sitting there. And so that energy is still with me a little bit. And I Yeah, and that was like 2 hours ago. And so now it's super late and I'm doing this reading, and I'm just giving you some insight to all the little bits that help to inform this process and this time. And maybe it's one of the more vulnerable times I think I've been speaking about these readings. So again, thank you for receiving, and thank you for yeah, just listening. Because one of the messages I'm getting in this moment is to be more vulnerable, be more truth telly, and use your words more. Just be really honest and clear and present. So this is a practice of that. So it is now a week later, and I am doing this reading for folks. And again, just to remind folks to come back to the context for these readings, why Terra for World on Fire, right? And why these offerings during these seasonal shifts. And the invitation is that these seasonal shifts are really beautiful flashpoints for us to just pause and to be in a moment of stillness and of silence and reflection, and recognize that those markers of seasonal shifts, they don't end what happened previously. They don't necessarily start something entirely new, but what they do is invite us to the recognition that change is possible, change is coming, and change happens every single day. And we're here to interrogate what is the change that spring is inviting us to do potentially in this moment. And so we'll talk a little bit through spring and what spring means, what it embodies, what it is. And the big thing that kept coming up over and over and over again over this past week, as we reflect on just the rain and things slowly coming back to life, and the budding on the trees, and the whispers of bees and flies and squirrels and birds, and just this like chorus of nature sort of coming back, is that spring is an invitation to transformation. It's an invitation to witness transformation and see ourselves as active participants in transformation and actively capable of being transformed. And so I think sit with what transformation is and what transformation looks like for you, right? And so when using nature, using the natural world as a mirror for us, we can see in seasonal shifts, and in particular in springtime, we see the world actively start to regenerate, right? And it regenerates through really the power of relationship and communication. The communication and relationship between, from the sun to the earth to the sky, to the rain, to the plants, to the insects, to the fungi, to death and decomposition, to seedlings, to fruit, to rebirth, to just this whole cycle of just witnessing all of these different parts of our ecosystem, our natural ecosystem, be in communication to another, signaling it is time, it is safe, it is now, right? And our relationships are the things that set us free often, that connect us to our truth. And I'm thinking about our relationships to our natural environment, right? The lessons we can learn in the signals that we get, when we know for example, when the ground is warm and it's fertile and it's safe to blossom, and the lessons and learnings from like the network of communication that exists underneath the soil as it relates to fungi and root systems of trees communicating through mycelial networks. So it's like that word, I use that word all the time. Mycelial networks, to signal danger and send medicine and nourishment, and just keep the community strong and keep the community alive, right? And so again, those are just markers and they're signals of clear, communicative, powerful relationship within the context of an ecosystem. And thinking about how that might look for us as humans interacting with each other every single day. What are the ways we can mirror and mimic that same level of communication and connection and clarity as it relates to relationship building and transformation in our ecosystems? It really thinks about or brings up for me things like radical honesty, like clear boundaries, like open communication with ourselves, with our people, with spirit, with active organizing and resistance, with a deep and consistent love ethic that we show up and utilize and move with in our lives, in our communities, in our activism. Um, it is just it is the way that we use all of that, the way that we embody all of that um, to be an active transformation, um, an active rebirth, you know? There's just like so much in spring. And I was not a spring girly. Spring was not my season. I was pretty anti-spring. I'm like, y'all, it is wild out here. Like these allergies are acting up. Pollen is not my friend. Like I'm here for a summertime cuteness with the sun and the beach and the water. I'm here for a cute little sprinkle of snow. Fall is my season because fall is giving you Libra. Fall is giving you layers and fashion and all the things. But more and more and more, spring is such a teacher. And I think it is a teacher because it literally is the season between death and life, between winter and summer. And so it is that transformation. It is that. It is that. Um, and transformation can be really terrifying because it signals both endings and beginnings. It's both love and grief, right? Possibility and loss. And when I think about the ways that transformation can be painful, I think about the ways the world is really hard right now um, for all the reasons stated earlier in this call, right? In this video, and all the ways that, as this is a reading that really centers and honors Black, queer, and trans people, what is happening in the U.S. in particular in this moment as it relates to our freedom, our health, our ability to exist, and the erasing of us, right? Active erasure. And part of me really is trying to hold and recognize that the closer that we get to freedom, the closer that we get to truth, the more intense the blowback is, right? It's a signal that we're actually living too freely for their imaginations. We're becoming too powerful. We will always be too powerful. And why is that? It's because Black, queer, and trans people are the literal embodiment of transformation and liberation in physical form on this earth. The literal embodiment of transformation and liberation in physical form on this earth. We are the blossoming of a flower, the budding of fruit on a tree, like the literal becoming and being a people that are actively practiced in transformation is terrifying for folks to see and witness. It is too much to behold, right? Because there's such power in being all of that in one body. And so that is what the fear is. And that transformation is fucking power, right? So I think it's just really important to acknowledge that this is also not the first time we walk these paths, right? Our people know pain, they know exuberant joy, at the same time. They always have. And this life has always been an interplay of grief and love. We grieve the things that we love the most. We grieve hardest for the things that we love the most. And we love the most the things that are most worth our grief. Like there's always like this like constant interplay of like love and grief and loss and possibility and like ending and beginning, and just that dynamic is just all encompassing in the experience of spring, in the experience of transformation, in the experience of Black, queer, and trans people. And so embody, embrace, live in all of it. Take the space to fall, to crumble, to break. Because in the breaking will be something new, something powerful, something revolutionary, and again, something bigger and bolder and more powerful than they will ever be able to erase. We will never be able to be erased. And so through that breaking and the opening that we experience through that, we can and are using brilliance and power just to recognize ourselves, our communities, and the world. And again, spring is not to recognize, to reorganize ourselves, our communities, and the world. Transformation is about the breaking and the reorganizing. Yeah, it's about the breaking and the reorganizing. And so nature and spring in particular, spring is a powerful, powerful season, is that embodiment of that transformation. And so whenever we feel a little bit lost and a little bit unsure and a little bit unsteady of what is to come, what possibility exists, spring shows us that from the trees that look barren and leafless and cold blossom beautiful big flowers and leaves and life and so much possibility. And there's so many lessons to just take and just in looking outside and being in nature. And so transformation, that's spring. And so as we think about then what a practice might be to be in that remembering and that medicine that spring provides, the practice is very simple. Be outside. And ideally, be outside in deep connection with the earth. So that might look like keeping your eyes open. And I had a really incredible person in my life who invited me to do some like self-care sessions with her. And her name is Vanita. She has a website. I think, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get it wrong. It is on my on the community page. On my website, lialchemy.com. I think Soul and Love Wellness. I'm like 90% sure that's what it's called. Go check it out. She's amazing. But she did these self-care sessions and was just like, this was maybe like a year ago we were talking. And she was like, just go outside and take a walk. And I want you to do it without distraction. I want you to like take in your environment and just like see the things that you see and think the things that come. And just so many things that I was actively ignoring because I was on my phone or being distracted by my environment in some way, shape, or form, or just like by the things, the to-dos, the asks, just by opening my eyes and like looking and seeing and perceiving. I was able to take in so much information that was like, oh shit, there's like lessons everywhere. And especially in springtime, everything is changing, everything is transforming, everything is becoming something new. So our eyes are the first way we can connect to the earth. And a second, another different way is by touching it. And so what it looks like to put your fingers in the soil, It looks like take off your socks and shoes and put your feet in the earth. Grounding is a really powerful practice in just being able to stabilize, to reroot yourself to the earth. There are like, I won't say this exactly correctly, but there is energy, electrons that actually are moving through our bodies and the earth. And there are actually ways that you can like kind of take off your shoes, be in touch with the ground, and literally get calm, bring calmness and centeredness into your body just by spending some time by reconnecting to the ground. It is actual medicine, it is actual healing practice. That oftentimes the concrete that we're standing on, or even the shoes that we wear, just don't give us access to that kind of healing. That many of our people, indigenous folks, our peoples before the current westernized societies that we're living in had much more access to the earth as just a sense and tool of grounding, of healing, of place, of presence. And so that could be a thing. Just take a moment in a park and just get really grounded and rooted, and take some breaths and just like see what comes and just like remember the peace, the silence, the stillness, and then use your eyes to take in the transformation happening around you. So that's your medicine. Go outside, take a breath, stare at the nature around you as it transforms, and take off your shoes and or put your fingers in the dirt, and be with it for a moment. And see, journal afterward, do some reflection, see what comes. Okay, cool. So we are now going to shift into the tarot reading itself. And so funny, I told myself this was going to be a short and punchy reading, and it's not. And that's okay. Maybe it's still punchy, it's just not that short. So again, tarot session using cards from Tarot for World on Fire. Maybe there'll be cards for this. But these are not cards for Tarot for World on Fire. These are the wild. Oh my God, I'm using so many other tarot deck names. This is the Next World Tarot by Christy Rode. So really great tarot deck. They're really big for the virtual situations, and really lovely cards that I use for this reading explicitly. Many other tarot decks that I have in my home, these are the ones that I use for this offering. So going to do some shuffling and some grounding, and we're going to ask the question of the cards, and the question will be, what should we collectively be paying attention to as we move into the spring? So I'm just going to take a second to do some cleansing of the cards. Okay. So I'm going to shuffle a few times, and then we'll pull the cards and see what comes in. And addressing the question, what should we collectively be paying attention to as we move into the spring? Okay, great. All right, So we're going to pull 3 cards and talk through what comes up, and we'll go from there. First card is the Lovers. Second card is the Two of Swords. And third card is the Six of Pentacles. Okay, great. Awesome. I think these 3 cards are all new. I don't think any of these cards have shown up before. I think maybe the Lovers have come up before, maybe. But otherwise, yeah, these look pretty. Yeah, these look pretty new to me in the context of this reading. Um, Great. So, first off, major themes. For suits and tarot, that mean different things. Only two of those suits show up here. One is the swords. Swords are cards about truth, logic, communication, cutting to the root of things, sort of bringing things from our mental to our mouths, and like just really speaking and articulating and naming in really powerful ways. And so a lot of communication and logic energy comes up with the swords. And then Six of Pentacles. Pentacles are cards of again, material things, substance, stability, home, earth, finances, wellness, wealth, structures, foundations. They're the physical things we like stand on and that feel really solid and stable in our lives. So things to be thinking about as it relates to moving into the spring season are both like the groundedness and stability and like the physical things in our lives, like how might that play into things we should be paying attention to this upcoming season. And then also logic and communication. There's something about the importance of our words moving into the season as well. So it's just 2 things to hold from a general theme space. And the Lovers card is one of the major arcana cards, which are major life archetypes that show up. And usually when those cards show up, major arcana cards, they acknowledge and signal bigness. Like this is something major to pay attention to. This is important in the context of the season. Pay attention. This is energy that we should be leaning into and feeling. So those are the cards that show up in a major theme sort of space. And so we'll be talking about the ways in which those 3 themes play out in relationship to each other in the reading. So the first card is the Lovers, which is, I feel like I say this often, but a beautiful card. And yeah, I think really funny and helpful. So just sitting with the card for a second. Oftentimes when we read the card of the Lovers, one of the more basic ways to read the card is literally about partnership, right? It's actually about like 2 people coming together in relationship. Partner, boo thing, friend with benefit, sexy time situation, intimate, spiritual, romantic, partner, just any combination of those 3 or individuals. It's about partnership often when the Lovers card shows up. Expanded concepts of and in that more basic reading, love is coming, right? Like partnership is coming. Pay attention to partnership that's showing up. When you start to expand that a little bit more, you start to think a little bit more about, right, when you start to like even queer that definition a little bit, right? You start thinking about different kinds and formations of partnerships. You start thinking about communal sort of love and what that might look like in the context of the lover space. And we talked a little bit about, or I just named the word love ethic, and literally was having a conversation with someone about this a couple days ago, and then it was coming up in a different conversation a couple weeks ago. But what would it look like to move through the world with love as a foundational practice of building connection, of building career, of building uh, community, of building family, of building possibility, of building accountability? Like, how does love become one of those central features that we're moving with, changing with, transforming with, right? Um, how does love become one of the foundational practices that we live in and operate on an everyday basis? And I often, in my own just personal journey and thinking, like, I'm always thinking about, like, what would this world look like if, like, extraction and harm, um, and, you know, uh, racialized capitalism and all of and white supremacy was like sexism, all of that was not part of the foundational fabric. But what if it was love? What if it was something else, right? And so that's the sort of energy that I think is important to start to consider and think about and embody as it relates to the spring season, as it relates to transformation, is how can we collectively start to use love as a foundational practice with the way in which we move through the world? And what might that do, if that is true, in the spaces that we move, in our communities, in our careers, and the accountability practices that we're in, and our lovers and our partners, right? So like really having like love be that foundational practice, and love that like is clear, is rooted in aligning you to your power and purpose, and yeah, just as that like deep, powerful uh Lord, words. Uh, the kind of love that also allows you to like love yourself in the deepest, most profound way that you've ever been able to love, right? There's like something about that love being deeply, deeply mirrored and deeply reciprocal and deeply like starting here um, for you. So, and for us. So love is a really important piece as relate to the spring. And given that all of the transformation, all the things that are happening, that seems pretty deeply necessary and foundational. Um, so let's love on each other, right? Let's love on each other real deep in this moment. And so we move to the Two of Swords. So Two of Swords, as again, swords are about the logic, the mental, so mind, mouth, communication, speaking. I just like play with my sleeves, so they got a little, or one of them be a little more flow than they actually were. So Two of Swords is really about communication, and well, swords are about communication. When twos show up, twos are usually cards of there's either like they're either cards of like a coming together or a like separation. There's like a this or a this or a this. Like there is like those are sort of like the interactions of like when the twos are showing up in the tarot. And for the Two of Swords, yeah, the Two of Swords is really a card of what it means to has several interpretations. One is when you are in when you are trying to move something in your life and you keep coming up against the block. One interpretation of this card is the energy of blockage and of stuckness and of coming to a wall, coming to an obstacle, not being able to get through it, being really pissed off about it, needing to maybe take a pause and start to think creatively okay, how do I get through this? How do I get around it? Can I get under it? Do I have to kind of get innovative and maybe change my stance or my practice so that way I can like maneuver through it in a really graceful way to not get bruised, not get harmed in this process, but still make it to my ultimate destination. Like I've come up against a block, I've come up against a stuck point. I need to pause and get creative about how to shift to get through. And it's the invitation to um, take a moment and reassess, right? And know that you will get through, but take a moment. It's okay to take a moment. Um, Another interpretation is that same sort of energy of blockage or stuckness, but it's about protecting ourselves. And so it is the um, energy of no, and the energy of boundary, and the energy of this is not okay. This is not aligned for me. This feels wrong. Um, I do not agree to this. You cannot come into my house. This is not going to happen in this way. You cannot talk to me this way. It is the energy of a really good, solid, resounding no, a deeply embodied no, right? That power of communication, the communication or boundary is powerful protection magic, right? Um, uh, Again, this is somebody that has done work on boundaries, and seeing them as really powerful magic and tools to help us get stronger and more clear, and more focused, right? And so there's also an invitation with Two of Swords to check your boundaries, to make sure that you're not lowering them when you don't need to be. Make sure that they are deeply connected to your values and they're aligned with who you are and where you are in this moment. And that you exercise and know when it needs to be exercised unapologetically. Because a no is protection. A boundary is protection. A boundary is love in practice. And so that connects us back to that lover's card, right? So how do we move through this season with love as a foundational practice, but a boundaried love, you know? What does that look like? Yeah, what does that look like? Yeah, that still keeps us whole, right? And keeps us present and safe. So that's the energy of the Two of Swords. Either you're coming up on a stuck point and a blockage, and we got to figure out how to creatively navigate it, or let's work on our boundaries. Let's practice our no's. Let's use that magic. Let's use that magic, right? So Two of Swords. Um, Beautiful, great, feeling it, loving it. Moving on to the Six of Pentacles. So again, Pentacles cards. Pentacle cards are cards of stability, home, finances, security, the rootedness, the ground, earth, really deep earth energy. And then sixes, when they show up, sixes tend to be cards of change or cards of conflict or cards of like shifting. Like there's it's the sixes are the energy in the tarot of moving from one state into another, and typically it's moving from the state of the fives being cards of more deep embodied, often loss, grief, uncertainty, disappointment, sadness, stuckness. There's just like the fives are just like a little bit more of like a challenging energy to move through, right? And then sixes is like that shift from that challenging energy, as we get closer to reflection, contemplation, completion, goals, like the ends of the tarot journeys. And so the six is that one of a few moments of shift, but six is one of those moments of shift. And I mentioned conflict, but it's also harmony is also a thing in there too, like shifting into conflict or shifting into harmony. And so, but it is the energy of a shift. And so for the Six of Pentacles, so again, we're then thinking then a little bit more around what might be shift. A couple of interpretations here again. One of the ones is really starting to think about our finances, our sense of stability, our sense of groundedness and rootedness, our foundations. What might be shifting? What might be changing as it relates to some of those questions or some of those physical things in our lives, right? So really like, okay, this might be a season where there may be some movement in that space, some shifts in that space. Might be important to pay extra special attention to those domains, right? Around our finances, around our sense of stability and home, around our rootedness, our groundedness, our foundations. Let's just make sure to keep eyes on those things because there could be some shifting happening. And that's just one thing to take note of. Spring transformation, right? So another indicator of things changing. So another piece here, as it relates to the Six of Pentacles, is another interpretation or possibility here is one of the shift in resource, the shift in foundation, stability, wealth, money, which I'm going to name as just resource, right? The shift in resources, being one in which we can start to thoughtfully words. It's not just about us. It's not just about us. So I think the six also invites us. Some of that shift is like, oh, maybe it's not just about me and my own situation. It's not just about me and my own sense of stability and security. But it's about like ours. It's about like the collective. It's about, are you eating too? Are you getting what you need to? Because I have a little extra if you need. Or yeah, it's that energy of making sure of recognizing and seeing in the shift that it's bigger than one, it is many. And then how do we then rethink finances? How do we rethink sense of home? How do we rethink stability and security when we step outside of an individualized perspective of resource and stability and security, and we transition that to more of a collective sense of resource and stability and security? And with that new lens, is there new understanding that comes into play around that shift in resource? And is there more new responsibility that shows up as it relates to that shift of resource, right? So if you have more, do you give? If you have less, are people making sure you're good, right? I mean, like that sort of interplay of like building strong, sustainable community is the energy also of the Six of Pentacles. And so, yes, a shift to be paying attention to, but not just about us individually, about us collectively. So let's just be thinking about that from a financial wealth, home, stability, security, groundedness space. Let's keep eyes on it, and let's make sure that we're thinking about it from a communal space. Which again tracks the sense of transformation if we're thinking about love being one of the most foundational principles that we need to be moving through in this season, and we're thinking about um, using our boundaries really clearly, right? Um, yeah. So it all is connected in this larger theme of transformation. Um, and that is your reading for the spring. Beautiful. Okay. I finally did it. Yay. I'm so excited. I'm feeling really proud of this one too, and I hope you are too. Um, So feel free to, of course, provide feedback, insights. I love it when you tell me if it's great, if it's terrible, if you love something, if you hated something, I don't know, whatever. So just like tell me all the things, please. It makes me feel really good, and makes me a stronger practitioner, and person offering this particular kind of support, um, and care in this way. That feels really good for me. And I think, yeah, can be really helpful and useful as we think about our collective liberation, our collective work. So, um, beautiful. So we're at the close. A couple of things I think just really quickly to announce, because I was like, oh, maybe I'm gonna like announce things like later because they're but I'm just gonna do it now. So I am in the next reading will be in June. June is summertime. And in that time, I am going to have transitioned into a sort of fully independent space, where I am not working for an institution, but I am really navigating the world, as someone who is doing um, consulting work, supporting movement leaders and organizers through change, um, and shift, um, uh, in like loving, grounded practice, and thinking about how we build out stronger movement infrastructure, like how do we make sure our organizations have the infrastructure needed, to be able to sustain for the long term, um, and how to, and I'm going to be doing a lot more healing work, just more generally. Um, Healing work. There will be new offerings I think I will be, that I've been kind of toying with and playing with and experimenting and practicing with, that I think I'll be able to be ready to provide. And the goal is to do some more writing and art too, and just like kind of really be in a much more embodied practice of um, storytelling, which is really exciting. And follow me on Instagram if you don't already. My Instagram is Blair_Witchy. Um, I am using this reading as a catalyst to really start to post several things, that I've been moving through in the past month, that I'm again just practicing using my voice, is really telling my story in a really particular way that I think is really important and as part of my own healing practice. Um, and I'm doing some really exciting travel that I'll also be talking about on Instagram in the next month or two as well. And then I'll be talking about more offerings and things that I'm doing in the world in June, because that will be a month where I will really be fully in this new role of um, uh, consultant, coach, uh, healer, writer, full-time witch. So that's the dream that I've been moving toward, and it's happening. So I'm very, very excited. Cool. All right, my loves. Thank you for being here. I would love, love, love to connect. So please hit me up. Again, lightalchemy.com is the website. Blair_Witchy is the Instagram. Follow the Rooted Collective. I'll be doing more things and stuff through that space as well. And excited to see what comes next. So much love to all of you. Please, please take good care of yourselves, my loves. And thank you for taking the time and being here. We will continue to play these grooves from DJ Theodore Rex as we close out. Have a good rest of your day, evening. Love you.